colours am I seeing in me, and therefore how do I repeat that in my jewellery? Here is Carol wearing a few different outfits. These are my colours. I should look amazing. Why aren't I looking amazing? Because I should look amazing.
So we're talking today with Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style, and we're talking about value and contrast and how that affects your clothing and the jewellery that you choose. Welcome, Imogen.
Thanks, Carol, for having me.
So for me personally, value and contrast was the hardest thing. I really struggled with figuring out or understanding how it related to my style after I did your 7 Steps to Style course. I was great with colour naturally. I was drawn to the colours that were right for me. But in terms of contrast, I really struggled. So can you tell me a little bit about the contrast and the value and contrast and how it works?
Sure. So value is the technical word for how light or dark a colour is. So we can think of that value scale like a grey scale, or, a light to dark blues, light to dark greens, light to dark any colours. That is the value scale. So value just means how light or dark something is. Contrast means what is the difference between two versions or two different colours. So when we put those together, we've got value contrast. So this, when we're thinking about an outfit, is what is the difference between the elements of you and then repeating that in your outfit. A way to create a style that really works for you is when it's in harmony with you. So it's in harmony with your personality. It's in harmony with your body shape and features. It's in harmony with your face. It's in harmony with your colouring. And it's in harmony with your contrast as well. We're just repeating what we are seeing in you. And it's actually really easy when you think about it like that. But if you just think about, what am I seeing in the mirror? How can I create harmony with this? So for example, now many years ago I had black hair. So I want you to imagine me with black hair. And I remember putting together an outfit one day that looked something like this, where I had on a pair of blue jeans, I had on a blue vest in a slightly lighter colour, and I remember at the time looking in the mirror thinking, these are my colours, I should look amazing. Why aren't I looking amazing? Because I should look amazing. I was looking in the mirror thinking, what is it that's different about me? And I went, oh, I've got like really dark hair but very pale skin. So what I did is, this was the cami. So I pulled that out and I replaced it just with a white cami. Now, all you saw was that little V of cami in the V-neck. So it was just a tiny bit of that, but that suddenly created contrast. And it was someone who, I had that Snow White look, black hair, white skin, blue eyes, that worked so much better because it had that extra bit of contrast in it. And then having, seen so many amazing women in my 7 Steps to Style program and their outfits, and getting to see them in their colours, but then going, well, that outfit's not really working. That's when, the more I've seen this, the more I actually have come to believe and see that contrast makes the biggest difference in how an outfit looks on you. And even if the colour's wrong, if the contrast is right, we see that being right. So this is where they are concepts we want to put together. So when we think about contrast, this is our value contrast. So value meaning how light or dark the different shades are from each other. So we can have a low contrast, and this is where, we've got, not a big difference between the colours of hair, eye and skin. Really, we're looking at, on the whole, we're looking at hair, eye and skin colours. Is there a big difference? Is there a small difference? Is there a medium difference? Like if you look at me, my hair, especially at the front, is somewhere in here. It's quite light. My skin is also in the same area, but my eyes are actually down here. So that gives me the jump between up here and down here, which gives me a medium value contrast. Now, when I used to have black hair, I was a very high value contrast because I had very pale skin, very dark hair, so that is a bigger jump, which is why I could wear black and white and things like that. Versus now, if I put that on, it really wears me. For example, if I just show you like black and white on me, you'll just say, oh, it's just too much. Like, it just wears me now. Can't wear it anymore. I look much better in, white with, something that's a bit more medium White with grey, so much better, isn't it? If I was going to go with white in a colour. So this is when we're thinking about value contrast. So here is Carol wearing a few different outfits. And the one on the left, like Carol is like me, more kind of medium value contrast. And that one on the left is just too high a value contrast. You can see that the dark jacket looks heavy, weighs her down. And then that stripy shirt, still probably a bit too high a value contrast. The second one is a little bit better. It's still probably a little bit high value contrast, but because the light is over the top and she is more light than dark, because the value comes down to your hair colour. So because Carol's got light hair, she looks better in overall light outfits. Then that one is better because we've got more light next to her face with the dark top. But the one on the right's the best. And this is because we're repeating that light dark or the light medium kind of thing in that outfit. So it works better because it's more in relationship to her overall value and her overall value contrast.
Sorry.
Carol's going, shall I say something?
I'm in shock. So basically what you're saying is you can be an overall light or an overall dark, or you could be somewhere in the middle. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So this is what we call ideal value. So ideal value is, if you look at you in the darker outfits, they are heavier than where you. Versus because you're overall light, so your overall value relates to your hair colour, you look much better in these overall light outfits than the overall dark outfits. And the value contrast is just that difference between the lightest and darkest elements of you. So we want to think about the proportions being similar to what we see in you. So if your eyes are the darkest part of you, they're a small proportion. So we only want pops of dark. We don't want lots of dark.
And that was actually something that I really struggled with. But those of you who watch my channel all the time will know that I usually wear a piece of dark jewellery, and my thing is dark jewellery because that is the easiest way for me to find that contrast near my face, is just to have a little pop of that dark piece here.
But you don't need to have lots of the dark, just a little bit of dark.
So I'm an overall light person, but I do need a pop of dark. Whereas you're a little bit more medium than I am.
So this is where, I've got medium coloured eyes and fair skin, fairish hair. So more light with pops of medium rather than pops of really dark. So this is where we think about ideal value is just the overall of the outfit. So if I look at value contrast for me, you can see where I'm wearing an overall light outfit, and then the necklace there is this colour, like the blues in that necklace are similar to the depth of my eyes. So, and the grey top is similar to my hair. So what you're seeing is me repeating. So it's that harmony, it's that keeping on repeating what we're seeing in us to create a really harmonious outfit.
So does this affect the neutrals that we choose as well, and how many colours, how many colours and how many neutrals we wear?
Yeah, so it does in a way. So if you look at what you are, so this comes into what we call colour contrast. So this is the second part of contrast, which is kind of in some ways slightly more complicated. But if you look at you and you say, is my hair more neutral or more coloured? Now, my hair is very neutral. Grey hair is about the most neutral, like black, white and grey are the most neutral neutrals. They're what we call achromatic neutrals. People often think of black and white as being monochromatic. That's not correct. Mono means one and chroma means colour. It means like shades of blue or shades of green or whatever it might be. Achromatic means A meaning without chroma, colour. So black, white and grey are our true neutrals. But we look at browns as being neutral. They're kind of off colour wheel. Some very ashy blondes are very, neutral. Some skins are much more beige or more white or more neutral. Other skins have more colour in it, where you go, oh, there's more gold in them or there's more pink in them. So we may have more coloured skin or we may have more neutral skin. And then eyes as well. So do we have like very, brown neutral eyes, or do we have blue eyes or green eyes that have more colour? So this relates to our colour contrast. So colour contrast means that we can then repeat those colours we see in us. So do we need more neutrals? So neutrals, the best neutrals relate to your hair colour. So when I had black hair, black was a great neutral for me. Then I went blonde, and so I would actually find out I went at quite platinum blonde, so white became a really good neutral for me. Now I am grey. Grey is my best neutral. So if you've got like really, brown hair, you might find some of the deep browns work really well. If you've got kind of red hair, you might find your neutrals often are in that kind of cognac or tans, those sorts of colours. If you've got, a light beige could be a great neutral for you. In the right undertone. Of course, we've got to get the right undertone version, but you might go light beiges could be a really good neutral. We can also look at our eye colour. What is in our eyes? So I've got blue eyes, so I might find that, I can go a bit of navy. I can do, some denim blues, those sorts of colours could also be classed as good neutrals. If you've got brown eyes, it might be brown. If you've got olive eyes, olives will be, deeper olives will be really good neutrals, and some of the khakis, those sorts of colours. Our colour contrast relates to what colours are we seeing in you, and then how many colours and how many neutrals. And so therefore, how much colour do I want to bring in? So if you're someone who has red hair and blue eyes, you're fairly highly coloured, and so you look good in multiple colours together. Versus if you're brown hair, brown eyes, beige skin, you look good in just one colour at a time, or potentially even all neutrals, but back in the right value contrast. So we can't forget the value contrast while we're doing the colour contrast.
And the colour undertone as well.
Yes. So that all these things have to come together.
Lots of balls in the air.
And this is where too, even thinking about makeup. So if I'm wearing something more neutral, I can wear just one colour, versus if I say up my lipstick colour, add in a bit more redness to my look, then I can start to go, well, I've got the blue of my eyes, the red of my skin, you can add more colours in.
For me personally, I'm 2 colours plus a neutral, and I find that when I do wear just one colour and my neutral, or even just one colour, I look boring. And so adding that little colour, and it could be a little pop of colour in my necklace, it just gives me that life that I need.
So if I was going to wear an all white outfit like this one, I need to still bring back some colours in my jewellery to add some colour. Or then repeating, say, a colour that I have in the bottom up in the top to bring that back up close to your face as well. So to get that right colour contrast, as well as that right value contrast in your outfit. So
for most people, a black and white necklace won't really work, right?
It really depends on the person. So if you have, and this is where, I always remember back in the, early noughties, Trini and Susanna, who did the first What Not to Wear show, they brought out a book and they said you shouldn't wear a light colour with black or a pastel with black. And that's because it didn't work on them. They were their own models, and they were both actually low value contrast. So for them, it looked terrible. But for me, who was pale with dark hair, it looked great on me. Yeah. So that's where, it's about what works for you. So if you have, that higher value contrast, now you could be fair with dark brown eyes. You could be dark haired with fair skin. Both of those work with a high value contrast. But it's really repeating that. But if you're more medium, or where you got medium hair, light hair, or medium dark hair and medium light skin, there's less going on. You don't want to go so extreme. You want to kind of bring it in a little bit.
So in terms of jewellery, you can have contrast in a piece of jewellery, correct?
Absolutely. So you can have the contrast in the jewellery, even something like this where I've got the light little silver beads in between the medium pink beads, create some contrast.
Yeah, and I always do that in my jewellery, which I did a video just a few weeks ago, well, a while ago now, about adding contrast and colour value to your jewellery. But I nearly always accent my jewellery with a piece of silver or a different colour, because that creates that little pop of the high contrast for me. But if you're not a high contrast person, then you could change that down to, instead of using a silver bead, you could use a coloured bead that's closer to the larger beads.
Yeah. So so this is where it's looking at yourself and going, what colours am I seeing in me? And therefore, how do I repeat that in my jewellery? Because when we repeat it next to our face, it always looks the best.
So now we've mentioned Imogen's courses, 7 Steps to Style. She also does other courses. She does a fantastic little starter course called Evolve Your Style, which is where I started with Imogen, and she gives you is it 30 days of challenges?
It's 30 days of very small challenges. So if you feel like you're really stuck in a style rut, so this is based on brain-based science on how to get yourself some new neural pathways that help you get out of that habitual, I'm getting dressed out of the laundry basket or whatever it might be, where you're getting dressed in the same clothes every day or very similar. But not necessarily shopping. This is about shopping your wardrobe, using what you've already got, but trying some different things. And then assessing how you feel about that at the end of each day. But it will push you to try some things and actually feel better about trying new things. And within 30 days, you'll have completely changed your whole attitude to style.
Yeah, before I did Evolve Your Style, I was actually a uniform dresser. I wore the same clothes every day in different colours. And I wore the same type of scarf or jewellery or, same type of jumper.
And part of that can be is because we go, well, I know this works, so I don't want to stray. I haven't tried anything else, and I don't want to feel ridiculous or look ridiculous. I don't want people to laugh at me. And so we end up kind of like, we talked about in that personality video, all about like what I call like the 7-lane freeway, super freeway that is our personality style. But we end up stuck in one lane, not even using our 3 or 4 lanes. And this is where all it does is pushes you back out to consider your 3 or 4 lanes. You do want to be at least having a little bit more expansion, because you'll get really bored. And that's where people often think, oh, I'm so bored. And they go and buy different, but they buy the wrong sort of different because they actually don't know who they are and what they really like. And so
Exactly.
It's very easy to get swayed by a friend or a sales assistant or somebody else was wearing that, or I saw it on Instagram, whatever it might be, and buy the wrong thing because we just don't know.
Yeah, and it's really important not to be swayed by the sales assistants who might be a completely different colouring or a different value contrast from you, and they tell you something looks great when you know it doesn't. Now, Imogen has kindly offered that if you sign up for one of her courses using the link in the description box below, she will give you 2 free courses. So that is a pretty cool deal. The courses that she is going to give you are an outfit masterclass, and that is valued at $47, and an online shopping guide. That one's valued at $97, so worth taking advantage of that. Okay, so that is all we're going to talk about today for value and contrast. We are next going to be talking about texture, and so make sure you join us for that one, and I'll leave that linked up here when it's ready. Thank you so much, Imogen. It was lovely to chat with you again, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Carol.